We are live. We're alive. Yeah, Rick Shue here. I have Pete Fletzer. I said that
Hello.
correct.
You did.
Pete
You did.
from Around the Galaxy podcast. Great guy. Can wait for this discussion. Let's chat.
Everybody come on, let's get down. Get down.
Get down. My banner covered up at Freak Bass Music by. Always want to shout out to my friend Freak Bass for this music. Love you, buddy. Thank you so much. Pete.
Rick.
Pete.
What's up, man?
I feel like I know you.
You know, it's weird. One of the things I found about pandemic more than anything else is I have made friends through social media that some of them I've only met once, if at all. And some, in your case, I've never met you face to face, but we've spoken, we've interconnected with thoughts on social media. And like you said, I feel like I know if you showed up at my house today, I'd be like, come on in, have a beer, let's have a seat, let's do this.
100%. And by the way, that's a conversation that they could go off into the weeds about meeting friends online, because look, man, I've met some friends doing this kind of stuff. I've been doing this since 2012, I guess, in terms of podcasting. And the friends that I've met, there's some friends, Pete, that I've known for years, like Zaki Hassan. What's up, buddy? And he and I've never met in person. And we've like sent each other gifts for our kids being born, and like text and talk and podcast, and I've never met the man in person. And when you meet people in person, I know that you know this firsthand, when you have this relationship with them online, it's like boring. You're like, hey, you're a human being in the flesh and blood. What's up? You know?
Yeah.
But there's this overwhelming sense of familiarity because we already know each other. That anyway, to your larger point, I agree. And everybody, pardon me, since we are live, I'm going to actually plug this on Twitter real quick. If you don't mind, I'm going to tag you in it. Join me and Around the Galaxy now.
And I'll have my phone ready, so I'll repost it. See, this is the way the internet works. And then when I see it come up as a thing on the I don't know the technical terms, a tagged in. There we go.
There you go. You're tagged. So if you're listening to this on iTunes, I'm too lazy to really edit this shit out. So a couple of things about this, especially these live shows. I curse like a sailor. I am a Texan, but I try to hide it. My co-host Courtney Cheek typically keeps me in line when she's on the show with me, but and Brian Chatlin doesn't do a very good job. Love you, Brian, but you know, he lets me just curse away. So Pete, I'm going to try to keep it under control. But also, it's not just that's kind of funny. But we're going to talk a little bit about Mandalorian. And Pete, what do you think? We're live here, but if we tell everybody, I have it on the banner here, that we might get into some spoilers on today's episode. That's fair game, right?
I think so. It's such a weird thing. When it was dropping on Wednesdays, there was this sort of, or Fridays rather, there was this sort of don't say anything till Monday. And now, geez, as soon as I literally have to get up at like 5 a.m. to watch it and not touch my phone because it's gonna be spoiled immediately. So yeah, hey, if you're here, you're getting spoilers. And
you're getting spoilers. Well, before we get into it, first of all, tell us about you and your show real quick. I've been listening to it now off and on for quite some time. What I really love, and I listened to the episode you guys did with Ryan Avery from Screen Crush.
Yeah,
I said that right, correct?
Ryan Airy, actually. Yeah.
Airy. Yeah. I love him. He's great. His videos are like contagious. They're addicting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's great. But what I love about your show and the two gentlemen you had on with you, everybody's just so passionate about Star Wars. And, you know, in this day and age, and we can talk a little bit more about this later, with the toxicity, I have a hard time with that word, of fandom, particularly this franchise.
Yeah.
Just seeing people with just their love of Star Wars and just rejoicing in it. And, you know, when you don't like something, it's a good faith conversation about that, which is completely fine.
Sure.
But you guys are very much needed, especially right now, because Star Wars fandom is at an all-time low, at least online. And so thank you guys for doing what you do. So tell us a little bit about you and your show.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think, you know, one of the key things is that, as you just said, we're real, right? I mean, I'm the first to say that I had serious issues with The Rise of Skywalker, but as some of my guests have said, it's my it's my 11th favorite Star Wars movie. It's still a favorite. It's still something I love. I'm still passionate about it. I'm still very excited by everything that we've done, or that we've seen and what we've gotten over the years. So, from that perspective, what we do on the SSW network is it started with Around the Galaxy, my show, which I've been doing now for about 4 years. And now I've brought in my partner, Nick Milkey. We both co-host that show. And Around the Galaxy is about every other week or so. We do one-on-one interviews with some of the people behind the fandom. And we've been so lucky. We've had, Oscar-winning effects artists. We've had New York Times best-selling authors. We've had personalities and actors and just about, but we try not to get into the the old Chris Farley routine with that. Remember that time when you wrote that thing in the book? That was excellent. What we try to do is we really try to understand how Star Wars has shaped them and kind of get their thoughts on where where they feel about how they feel about the franchise. We've had people who one of my favorite interviews was I interviewed Charlie Benante from Anthrax, because I'm a big metalhead, and we just talked about like the first time he saw Star Wars and that sort of thing. And because we believe that Star Wars is like a connecting point. And Rick, you and I, that's how we connected. We connected first through a Star Wars tweet somewhere, and then we ended up connecting, and that's a great starting point for a conversation. And where it goes from there is what's exciting. So that's what we do with Around the Galaxy. And then on Friday nights we have a live show called Force Connect, where we're also joined by Chris Ryans from Broaxium, and we try to do a live call-in show, and we talk about the Star Wars news of the week. Sometimes it's an episode that we take a deep dive into, sometimes it's some crazy news coming out of wherever, but always try to just have a real conversation about it. And sometimes we love stuff and sometimes we have issue with it, but the key, kind of what we always say is, you can have any opinion you want as long as you're not an asshole. And as soon as that happens, we'll kick you out. But it's okay to have conversations. I mean, as you said, Ryan was on the show with us this past week, and he doesn't love everything, and that's cool because we're having a conversation about it. We're not turning it into something that's so negative,
Toxic.
that toxic, that it's a we sell a shirt that says it's fake and in space, and at the end of the day you got to remember that, right? So
well, here's how I approach everything Star Wars. I love it before I see it, and then when I watch it, it'll alter my level of love. And so I may not love it as much as I wanted to. I may love it more. It might not move the needle at all. Take Solo, for instance. I wanted to love that movie. I didn't love it. I watched it multiple times. I like it. It's just, for me, very forgettable.
Yeah.
But so what? I know a lot of people that love it, and the Make Solo 2 hashtag. I'm all for, by the way, them continuing on with the story.
Yep.
Probably would be Disney Plus. And my guess is, if I had to guess, they'll probably get around to that. That's just me. But we'll see. We'll see, right? But at the end of the day, that's just it. It's like, hey, we love the franchise. We're not anti-Disney, toxic, Kathleen Kennedy's the demon, all that absolute nonsense. And for me, honestly, I put up a video the other day about this. I'm like, can we celebrate being a fan right now? Like, if you don't like this stuff, you don't like the Disney era of Lucasfilm, because let's be clear on this, it's Lucasfilm still.
Right.
Is that right? It's not just Disney, it's Lucasfilm.
Yeah, the phrase Disney Star Wars is so silly. Yeah.
It is. And I'm not saying that there's not some influence with that. Surely there is, but at the end of the day, it's Lucasfilm. And by the way, most of what's there is George's people anyway. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's still his brainchild, and his people are carrying the torch, including Kathleen Kennedy for that matter. But as a fan, I just want to celebrate the fact that we're getting so much content, good, bad, indifferent. Like, if you're a fan and you're getting this stuff, like, what a time to be alive.
Sure.
I look at this as sort of the golden age of Star Wars. I mean, we got a trilogy. We have multiple other live action full length films. Disney Plus is largely on fire. Look, man, if you're not into this, when did George sell? Was that 13 or 12?
It was 2012.
12, and then Force Awakens came out in 15, if I remember correctly. Okay,
that's right.
So then now you've hated the franchise. Let's just use Force Awakens as a frame of reference. 7 years.
Correct.
If I hate something for 7 years, I'm out. All right.
Yeah.
I'm not,
the example I use all the time, and this is just the silliness of the toxicity. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Matrix. one of my two of my least favorite movies are the first two sequels. But I don't go online looking for people who like those movies and tell them they're wrong. And by the way, I've told people that very opinion, and they're like, I disagree. And I'm like, cool, tell me why, because I want to understand it. Since I love the first one so much, since I'm an OG Matrix fan, let's talk about why. I mean, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't change my mind, but let's at least talk about it because I care that much about the franchise. Same thing with Star Wars. It's the same thing. There's no reason to be, what was it? Leslie Headland said on stage at Star Wars Celebration when she was talking about the Acolyte. She talked about, there's so much opportunity to get into Star Wars. She literally came right out and said, I don't care if you hate the Acolyte. That's fine. And that's where we should be. Like, I don't love every Metallica album. There's some I love, there's some I don't. But that doesn't mean I'm not a fan. Doesn't mean I can't go back and watch and listen to what I love. And so that whole concept of being angry about Star Wars right now is just that you're angry about something else. I always believe that you're just angry about something else, and this is your outlet. And I would say that's fine, but it's really not. It's kind of sad.
Well, since this isn't my political podcast, I'll tread lightly here. But unfortunately, there is a political tie-in to a great deal of this, and that is sad. Now, real fast before we move on, because now you've made two references. I tried to ignore the first one. Now I can't. just for the record, my favorite Anthrax record is Sound of White Noise with John Bush.
Great album.
I know, it's my favorite. And my favorite Metallica album. Well, if I could take Load and Reload and cut 3 or 4 songs out per record and make that one, that would be their magnum opus, in my opinion. And I think Until It Sleeps is my favorite Metallica song. And my second favorite Metallica song is probably Sanitarium. So just to show you where I'm at.
There you go. That's
with
cool.
them. Yeah, I'm a huge Metallica fan.
But what's interesting is you chose 2 albums from two bands that are the Force Awakens, Last Jedi of those bands. I love the John Bush era. A lot of people don't, but I love Joey as well singing. But before this becomes
so do I, of course.
But I love the songs there. But again, it's like, because you love that, my reaction was not, oh, he's not a fan if he loves Load and Reload, you got to go back. No, it's just cool. That's awesome. I'm just glad you like them. You know what I mean?
No, and I love all their stuff. I mean,
sure.
I'm old school. Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning. I was buying those tapes when they came out, and it's kind of funny back then. I didn't differentiate between Metallica, Motley Crue, and Culture Club, and Cyndi Lauper, Michael Jackson. I just loved music at a young age. And to me, it was all just one big party. And then you get older, you're like, oh, so this shit's divisive too. Everything's divisive. Everything's in the damn category. But all right, so let's kind of come back around and hone in on Star Wars here. It's obviously a mutual passion of ours. So today, the new episode of Mandalorian dropped, which is the second to the last of season 3, called The Spies. It was The Spies, right?
Correct. Yes.
The Spies, yeah. And I usually watch something at least twice, maybe 3 times before I really talk about it. But screw it, we're here. We're here really to talk about Celebration, but we can't not address the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's been streaming now for a few hours. What did you think of the episode?
I thought it was really great. I thought it was interesting because there was one of my biggest concerns was apparently they had shown it at Star Wars Celebration, and I was concerned that it was going to get spoiled. I'm so glad it didn't. I must curate my timeline efficiently. It didn't. And now there are people saying it's the best episode that there was. I think you and I agree on this based on what I saw you tweet this morning. It was a great episode. It might be my favorite episode this season. I'm not sure it's the best Mandalorian episode ever, but it was great. I really enjoyed it. But I've also enjoyed the way this season has progressed, and it feels like it's been leading up to this. And so, yeah, I think it was a great episode, and it really feels like, I feel like, I guess a good way to describe it might be that the first 6 episodes have been really been, in a way, kind of being used to set up this whole concept of we're going to be exploring this entire portion of the timeline. Excuse me. We're going to be exploring this entire portion of timeline. So we're going to set some pieces on the board. And for some people that was like, wait a second, that's not what this show is. And for me, at times it felt like, okay, this is going at a different pace than I expected. However, it feels like after this episode ended, I was like, okay, now I see all these different things were happening. I knew, because Dave Filoni we say it on our show all the time, he never wastes a frame. Everything happens for a reason. Every character makes a move for a particular reason. So I feel like I feel like this episode's really, it's set up to end the season really powerfully, as well as set up Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka and
Hmm.
the future of this timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. Because all the stuff is so intertwined, and that's what I love about it. I will say, for super hyper casual fans, I know this oxymoronic, but bear with me.
Yeah,
So I've got friends that they go see every movie that comes out. They oftentimes see them more than once.
right.
They watch the Disney Plus stuff. They love it. They love it. They text me asking me questions. But here's who they are, and God bless them. If we weren't all like this, we'd be better off. They don't give a shit, and they don't know who directs what. They don't
Right.
know the Ryan Johnson drama and this. And they watch the sequel trilogy. To them, it's just a cohesive story because they're just watching it as three films that they have no idea of any behind the scenes drama or nothing. They're like, oh, so Kylo was lying to her, or he might have had it. I mean, it's like, it's so pure. It's like, God, I wish I could be you. But for those fans, and again, they're like the hyper fans. They don't just go see the movies; they go see them 2 or 3 times. But they are lost, and they are lost because they haven't ever read anything in the EU, and they don't watch the animated stuff. And so, is it a little heavy-handed, or is it just comes with the territory because all this is just canon? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, I think I've always been somebody who said I don't believe you should have to read a book to get the movie. Right, the movie needs to be effective on its own, and in this case, this stuff needs to work without having seen a frame of animation or read a page of a book or followed any of the comic books. Um, and I think that's probably, if I was to have one critique of this season, it would be that I think the first 2 seasons they did a really great job of introducing really deep canon lore without making it so that you felt lost. So I refer to my dad all the time on my show. He's 75 years old. He's a huge Star Wars fan. He got me into Star Wars, but he's just like you said, like your friends. He goes to the movies. He's never watched animation. When Disney Plus came out, he's been addicted to all the Star Wars live action.
Mhm.
And so when Bo-Katan showed up in season 2, I was like, "Do you know who that is?" He's like, "Yeah, she's just some other Mandalorian," which is cool. She set him up. She set up, Din to question his faith, if you will, and that was
Sure.
great. It didn't matter that she had all this background, but that was a cool step. When Ahsoka showed up, I said to my dad, "Do you know who that is?" He's like, "Yeah, she's some cool Jedi, but she's pretty cool." And I was like, "You have no idea how cool she is. She's Anakin's Padawan, and blah blah blah." But it didn't matter. This season, I feel like they are kind of leaning on you and saying, "Hey, you have to know what's happened with these characters to appreciate it." Now, I don't know if that's the case because I can't put my head there because I do know all this stuff. But it sounds like there are a number of people who and I know who are like, now, why is this important, and why is this important and that important? And I think that's one thing that I think they could refine a little bit better because I've said it before. I think like people love Baby Yoda, right? That's what has sold Disney Plus and what sold live action television Star Wars. When you go from Baby Yoda, and if you go beyond Baby Yoda and start to expect people to know the history of Mandalore, you're going to lose a lot of people, and they're really dependent on those same people to watch Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka and then season 4 of Mando. So it's a challenge. It's a marketing challenge, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, some of this could be from the perspective of a fan like you and I too. Like maybe, and your father knows that you are a quote hardcore fan, and so
Right.
he knows it's safe to ask. But maybe the average person watching it, maybe to them it doesn't matter. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me. It's almost impossible for me to put myself in those shoes. So I just know this. I watch it, and I'm up to speed on animation mainly, but that is not necessarily in my wheelhouse.
Mhm.
I keep up with it from afar to make sure I understand what the hell's going on with everything. But there's times like, okay, wait a minute, I need to Google this. Who is this again? And then
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I see. That's from, okay, got it. And so, but if I didn't have that knowledge to know that they were coming from something, maybe it just wouldn't matter.
Right.
Hard to say. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And everything is obviously connected. And what I love about this episode is, and again, I actually really liked the last episode. I thought it was
Mhm.
fun. That's just me. But I could have done maybe without some of the cameos, although I think we're misusing that term in the sense,
Right.
but still, it was still fun. But I like the season overall myself. For this episode, I agree with you. This is not one of the best. I don't necessarily think it's the best this season. but it's really good. And really, at the end of the day, I'm going to judge the season as a season anyway.
Right.
So after
Right.
next week, we'll look at this from 20,000 feet, and then we'll judge it collectively. But it had a lot of heart, and
Yeah.
what I also really like is there's Star Wars is sometimes at its best with nuance, and I feel like the Lucasfilm era of Star Wars, I mean the Disney Lucasfilm era of Star Wars, is diving into nuance in ways that even Lucas just didn't do. Everything was, and I've said this before, everything was black and white,
Yep.
literally, and almost, I mean, figuratively and almost literally as well. If you look at, the actual literal colors of things and people
Sure.
and the contrast, but you get into like even the Force Awakens, it was there, but you get into Rogue One, and that's when it really starts peeling back the onion of, there's things I've done for the rebellion that I'm not proud of, but at the end of the day, I do them for the rebellion. I'm paraphrasing, but you get the idea. And what I like about this is that this episode, it shows the stakes are higher. It shows that not everybody makes the right decisions, even with good intentions. There's a lot of that going on in this, particularly, right? And then I'm still trying to avoid spoilers to an extent.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and this is spoiler. One of my favorite lines is actually when Grogu is I forget now what they're calling the droid in this. It's
IG-12.
IG-12, thank you.
Right.
And he's controlling it, he's driving it.
Yep.
But he breaks up the fight between the tribal Mandos, right?
Yep.
And Bo-Katan looks at and says, what is her line exactly? Like, your Padawan or your apprentice did well.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't teach him that. And all I could think of, he learned that from Luke. He learned from Luke to be passive, to be what's the word we're looking for here? Someone that can resolve conflict without force. And it's very kind of Jedi-esque, and it was pretty beautiful. And it's just a little thing like that. I'm like, God, I love this kind of shit. It's so prominent in this era of Star Wars, and I acknowledge it, and I love it, and I appreciate it. So let me ask you this: so you like the episode? That's great. Overall, this season for you compared to the other two seasons, you alluded to it a moment ago, but kind of where do you stand with one episode left on this?
Yeah, I think it's transparently, and this is the weird world we live in, right? With social media, like, to say I don't like something, you feel like you have to caveat it, right? I'm not going to caveat it. The reality is, season 2 to me, I felt like was the most cohesive season. So season 2 is my favorite. Season 1 is my second favorite because we were introduced to everything. It was so new and it was exciting. This season is my third favorite. But only because I think the pacing is a little bit different, a little bit weird. I feel like they're trying to accomplish a lot. And again, my only recommendation might have been that they make it 10 or 12 episodes so that they could extend some of the stuff that clearly feels a little bit rushed. But I love what the story's doing. I love where it's going. I've been sort of a proponent of the titular Mandalorian was not necessarily Din from the start. I thought it was Grogu. It could still be Grogu, but clearly, I think at this point, Din is a Mandalorian and Bo is a Mandalorian, and there's a lot of opportunity to tell this story. And again, without getting too much into spoilers, I think this season's going to end, and it may become my favorite as a result of how they resolve what they left off this week.
Yeah, calling it the Mandalorians, because to my knowledge, it is plural, unlike Jedi, right?
Yeah,
it is actually with an S. Might be a better suited term. That's fine. I'll accept that as one, I guess, criticism. But to me, also, it's expanding the world around the central character that truly ends up enhancing said character. Anyway, if you want to get technical about it, but that's at least a valid quibble that it's gotten away from him a little bit.
Yeah,
but that's only if it's all about perspective, right? It's from a point of view, so to speak.
Well, right. And if it had gotten away from him and went someplace that I didn't enjoy, I'd have a bigger problem with it. It's gotten a little bit away from him, a little bit. I mean, he's still in every episode. He's still playing a part in everything that's happening. But I love where it's going, and I love. I'm to your point. I didn't love the Lizzo Jack Black episode at first, but I went back. Here's the key, and I've said this on my show. I think it's really important to remember that what Star Wars truly is. At the end of Book of Boba Fett, for example, I went into that episode, the last episode of Book of Boba Fett, and I in my head I thought I knew it was going to happen. They were going to do this and that. None of it happened, but it was high action, high impact. But I was disappointed because I was like, could have done more with the Pikes. I wish more had happened with Bane and blah blah blah. My son watched it and said that was the best thing I've ever seen. He's 10 years old.
Yeah.
This Lizzo Jack Black episode.
Yeah.
I watched it with him, and he was like, "Is that Lizzo? Is that Jack Black?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." He's like, "Oh, that's cool." So I was like, "You know what? All right, it's working. It's honest."
Right.
Jar Jar Binks. I did not love him the first time I saw him. I've come full circle. I never harassed Ahmed Best. Let's be very clear. But I was not a huge fan of.
No, I wasn't
that,
either.
But I've come full circle. I understand it. I know what it's for, and I know how it's pulling in different people. It's people joke when Kathleen Kennedy says Star Wars is for everyone, but I mean honestly, it really is. And if you don't recognize that, and don't recognize that some jokes are not going to hit for you, you may not like your mama joke in The Last Jedi, or you may love it, but it may not have been for you. It may have been for the person next to you who was like, "My God, that's hilarious that they did that." So it's such a wide open canvas for everybody to play on, and I think that's the thing that's really important, and that's why I get frustrated with the negativity on social media, because it's gatekeeping. My least favorite phrase in the world is true fan. Back to the Metallica Anthrax conversation. Oh, you like the Bush era? Well, you're not a true fan. Bullshit. It doesn't matter. Do you like any of it? You're a fan. We're cool, and that's Star Wars, because it's all, I mean, geez, guys, it's coming up at 45 years or more than 45 years, right? 1977, 46 years this year. You're going to have stuff that you don't like. You're going to have stuff that you love, right. And it's going to change because the world has changed. I think you referenced, I'm sorry, I'm doing all the talking, but
no. I love it. You're on fire.
You referenced sort of the gray area, right? Where that in 1977, it was a lot easier to say these are good guys, these are bad guys.
Correct.
You said, oh, those are the rebels and they're the good guys. Fine. Hey, rebels do horrible things to defeat a horrible enemy. So it's not black and white. And I think in today's era, today's world that we live in, we're a little bit more aware of that. We're a little bit more aware of decisions that are made. And honestly, it makes for much more compelling stories.
Absolutely. And you can go back and watch, because it's like a real war in a sense, right? You go back and watch some of the greatest war films. Look at Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, yeah.
People are doing bad things because they're a product of where they're at in their time. And yeah, they're defending our country and they're fighting this war, the bad guy, but this guy just purposely did X, Y, and Z. That's not good. Right. And so it's like that there's stakes, but there is not a good guy, bad guy. And I tell you, I love The Last Jedi. Not a big fan of DJ, the character, and I love Benicio del Toro. I didn't really like his performance in that movie. It was really kind of took me out of the movie. I actually really like Canto Bight. I just like him. But the scene where he's kind of lecturing Finn on, weaponry and like good guys, bad guys, man, it's all the same. And when he's showing who used to own this ship, oh, this guy used to sell weapons to the Empire, First Order. Oh, look, and it's like I forget what ship it is, but it's clearly a rebellion ship. And he's like, oh, look at that. And you're going, wow, like war profiteering and all these things are, there's a lot of corruption and there's a lot of gray area. And so that's what I love about it. And, that's the thing, and not to go down this rabbit hole, but that's what I loved about Luke and The Last Jedi is that for me, Luke Skywalker, Rian Johnson made him more interesting and far more complex. And maybe it's also because of my age. I'm like, man, I get it. I was the farm boy Luke at one point. Now I'm the bitter old gray haired guy with a beard, pissed off at the world and feel like a failure. And then, but at the end of the day, and especially in that film, the arc is so beautiful. And like, to me, it's like so Luke Skywalker again. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but we're on the same page on this. And it's one of the things that I think might be turning some good faith fans off, not the toxic. But there's some people that they don't want that. They just wanted Luke to be, the hero they grew up with. And we just see him in full-fledged Jedi and doing his thing and everything. And that's okay. Star Wars may not be for you anymore. But if it's not, my advice is, maybe pick a new franchise, because it's not ever going backwards, right? This is
right. And it's funny. There's a guy who DMs me all the time. He's a toxic fan, and I don't know why I keep the line open, but I think I do just so I understand that side of the world. I could easily hit block, but I don't. But anyway, so there was one point we were having a similar conversation, if you can call it a conversation. I said, listen, um, good fiction reflects the real world. And his response actually told me a lot about him. And it told me, it reflects what you're saying. He said, well, I don't necessarily want to be reminded of how crazy things are right now. I was like, okay, that's fair. That's a totally fair thing. And now I understand why you don't like some of the stuff, because it's too real, right? In a way. And so
it's not the escapism it once was.
Correct. I mean, it's escapism because it's faking in space, but it's, like I said, any good story. And really good stories can be told over and over and still reflect the times they're in. So in Star Wars, that's why it's lasted almost 50 years.
Correct. Now, one thing I can't get my head wrapped around, everything we just said is accurate in real-time accuracy, but then Andor is embraced by fandom in a way that I didn't expect. I'm like, okay, so fans want something more grounded and nuanced and really gritty. You guys, I can't keep up with you guys. I can't.
Yeah.
You're all over the map. That contradicts everything you just said about
No, it's true. And
the franchise.
I mean, think about the millions of people who are fans of something that has grown and evolved, and you're going to have, different, people like, so you can like Italian food. My wife is Italian. She won't go into an Olive Garden, but there are people who love that and call it Italian food. So that's fine. It's all good. It's something for everybody. And I think that's just that's what keeps me grounded. It's what pisses me off when I see the extreme negativity, but it's what keeps me grounded. And it's why when I see people, tweet that The Rise of Skywalker is their favorite movie, I'm happy for them. It's not mine, but that's cool. Somebody's found complete joy in a piece of this fiction that we all share, and that's a win.
That's right. And I don't have a problem. I got a lot of good faith friends that don't like The Last Jedi, and I have no problem with their opinions, and we have a lot of fun bantering. I do have a problem with its woke feminism,
Correct,
feminist agendas, all that crap. I can't. That I'm not into. But
right.
But good faith discussions. That's what I love about you, man. We're so on the same page in some of this stuff, and quite frankly, we're just on the. And our page is real simple. Like, let's just enjoy this franchise, and if you don't like it anymore, then just move on and don't try to make a career being toxic and
right.
And unfortunately, like, crapping on Star Wars has become so profitable that it's also never going away. But so be it. So maybe one of these days, these people, it'll get so ridiculous that the masses say, when I say the masses, I mean the people that are into these YouTube shows, say, wait a minute, it's now 2027. You haven't liked Star Wars since 2005. I think it's time we move on. At some point that's got to break. I would think. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. A little time I have left with you. Let's talk about Celebration.
Yeah,
there was a lot going on as opposed to just kind of reliving every day or whatever. I just want, man, what are your biggest takeaways from it? What excites you the most?
Yeah, so the biggest surprise to me personally is that I'm excited about The Acolyte, and not because I didn't expect to like it because of who's making it or where it is. I expected in the time frame it was coming out. And again, I'm also the first to admit that when I heard that there was an Obi-Wan show, I was like, do we need that? Yeah, we needed it. It was great. Book of Boba Fett, do we need it? Loved it. So I should have known that going in. And it's not that I didn't want to see The Acolyte, but now I'm like dying to see The Acolyte. I'm really excited to see where it goes. So that was my own personal surprise from it. I predicted that we were going to get Daisy Ridley on stage, so I got that right. Yes, one of the rare times I get a prediction right. So I'm going to bask in that one. But I didn't expect the 3 movies. And I'm really excited that there are 3 movies completely set in 3 different time frames.
Yes.
And unlike the other announcements, the confidence level in 2 out of 3 of them is through the roof, and the third one is kind of like, yeah, probably. The Mangold one is the one that I put in if I had to choose one that's least likely to happen, I would say that, simply because, as you know, he's working on Swamp Thing. He's always got a ton of irons in the fire. And it's a different era, so it's not necessary, right? It's from the dawn of the Jedi perspective. So great concept, not necessary. Filoni is not going to leave Lucasfilm because of creative differences. I mean, that's not happening. They're done. They're good. They're solid. That's going to happen. They're building all the Disney Plus content to it. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that you don't walk Daisy Ridley on stage unless that thing is already got production sketches and a nearly completed script and all that stuff.
Absolutely. And my co-host on the show, Courtney Cheek, and she's brilliant and she has great insight on this stuff. I respectfully disagreed with her on this one thing, is that she's like, well, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm like, that's fair on almost
Sure.
every project, but that's now a legacy character. They
Mhm.
brought Daisy Ridley out on the stage. That's a PR disaster if they
Correct.
walk that back. It just is. Like,
Yep.
that's not a ambiguous story. And I think it's also smart with that it's a standalone film.
Yep.
Don't announce it as a trilogy. That could suffocate people anyway. And if it doesn't work, then you're not, if it works, then you want to continue it, you can. If it doesn't,
Yep.
it's a standalone film, and we all move on.
Yep.
But I'm really excited for that because I'm a huge fan of the sequel trilogy. I actually really love all three of those films, particularly The Last Jedi. But The Rise of Skywalker did work for me. But she is dynamite, and her
Oh, yeah.
and Adam Driver, when you look at just acting and
Mhm.
character development, they take the cake in the whole damn franchise, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I mean, the work that those two did over the course of 3 films is phenomenal.
Yep.
And man, I tell you, I'm stoked for that movie. What are your predictions of that? Are we going to lean into the fact that she's Rey Skywalker? Kathleen Kennedy was asked if Mark Hamill would make an appearance as a Force Ghost, and she said, "Well, I'm not ruling it out, but we're not leaning on that." What are your thoughts? How heavy-handed will the Skywalker thing be in that film, you think?
Sorry, it's spring break. Kids are home. They had
No,
a question.
no.
Um,
No,
so
yeah. And we're live. No,
and we're live. No,
my spring break's already passed. I've got kids in Dallas schools and Houston schools, and I know it sounds crazy, but I do. My girls in Dallas were like 1 week, and then my Houston kiddos were the week after that. And so now yours are this week. It's all over the place.
yeah. So it's all over. So
okay. So what do you?
But-
So how do you? How
so-
much? How much do you think that Lucasfilm is going to lean into the whole Skywalker thing in the Rey film?
yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I don't know. I think I have a couple thoughts on it. I think the new group, the new Jedi Order, could be called Skywalkers. Because also in the Thrawn books, they refer to I'm going to get it wrong because I haven't read them in a while, but they refer to Force sensitives as people who walk in the sky. So I think that could all kind of play nicely together. I know I'm screwing that up. If somebody's listening, they're going to actually me, and that's totally cool. Please do, because I want the facts. So I think if they lean into the Skywalker, it'll be in that regard. I think, though, I hope, my hope is that they bring Finn back, because Finn, I think, was clearly all throughout Rise of Skywalker trying to tell her, hey, I think I have this Force thing, and I want to see that happen. I also, yeah, I'm pretty sure he will be.
Yeah.
I think there's a great opportunity to bring back Oscar Isaacs and show that sort of headbutting that we saw from Rey and Poe in Rise of Skywalker as the headbutting of, government, military, defense versus theological way of approaching government. So maybe there's something there that might be a little too deep for a 2-hour movie. But the third thing, and this is something that this will be my next prediction, which is totally wrong. I predict Grogu will be part of that Jedi Academy, because a couple things. Grogu will be about 90 years old by the time that movie takes place. That's when Yoda was a Jedi Master. Second, the Mando story will be done by the time that movie comes out. So there's not going to be any sort of mysterious gap, and won't he survive? And finally, Grogu is bank, man. Grogu is money in the bank. He's on everything. He's in front of you. You can't walk through a Walmart without seeing 25 Grogu t-shirts. So I think it's there. I have an entire, yeah, there you go. You get your Grogu pictures, paintings.
You see my Yoda puppet back there?
I see you there.
I've had that thing since 1981.
Oh, nice.
That he's been with me. This is his son.
Okay,
sorry, go ahead.
But no, I think we're gonna see Grogu span that. Now, Kelly Knox, the writer, the author, she was on one of our shows, and I gave her that theory, and she said, nope, Grogu has already chosen to become Mandalorian. He left Luke, and I was like, she's not wrong, but
It's
but
Star Wars, though.
it's Star Wars. No one's ever really chosen their path, right? So I think we're good to go. But those are my thoughts on the sequel film.
And I can say this, and this kind of gets into the fandom thing, and I don't want to hammer this, but the sequel trilogy is canon. Sorry,
Yep. Sorry,
you can't take my shirt away. It's all there. It's not going anywhere. I mean, we have Hux's dad in this last
in the latest episode,
played by the actor's
brother,
real life brother. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I had to look that up too.
Well, at first I was thrown off. I was like, I'll be honest with you. It was early, and I wasn't thinking like, don't tell me they recast him. Oh wait, timeline. No, that wouldn't make sense. And then I was like, okay, oh, it's his dad. Yeah, okay, that's canon. And
I did the same thing. I was like, is that young General Hux? And,
no, that's his father.
Very cool.
That's very, very cool. But of course, we knew that. Anything else? The Ahsoka stuff looks awesome, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm a big Rebels fan, so I'm excited to see that story expanding and continuing. Rosario Dawson, I think, makes a really great Ahsoka.
She does.
I'm just afraid of the discourse of people saying, well, the head tails on Hera don't look great. Shut up. Enjoy it. But I'm excited about where that I mean, again, one of the things that Star Wars does extremely well, Dave Filoni in particular, is he names a show, but it doesn't do that. Like when Rebels came out, I expected Rebels to be about, just this nice cell of rebels, and it turned into a father-son family Jedi story. The Mandalorian thought it was going to be about some crazy bounty hunter who just walks around and does his thing, turned into a lone wolf and cub story, and now it's becoming a larger story. Ahsoka, I think we thought was going to be just sort of the extension of her story, but the reality is I think it's going to play into this bigger Mandoverse that Dave is bringing to the big screen, which I have to say I am a little bit nervous about. Only because I'm not sure if the MCU has done a great job of taking Disney Plus characters and bringing them into films. The Marvels, when that comes out, will, I think, tell us a lot about the success of that. And unfortunately, Miss Marvel was not terribly well received to begin with. So there's they've doubled their challenge on that one. But
yeah, they have.
I think they can do it.
Yeah, they can. And again, we talked about this coming back to the top of the show, that balance of these characters existing for the first time. And let's face it, the vast majority of people that are watching this stuff versus knowing the history of the characters, where they've been in Rebels and elsewhere, to enhance the story for you. And we'll see how that plays out. It's going to be an interesting balance. I'm going to kind of tie in real fast. We'll wrap it up here, but there was a panel with Obi-Wan on the day before the last day on Sunday. And I was hoping that there would be some sort of announcement for something. I don't know what I want. I don't know if I want a season 2. What would that look like? Here's my hopes for it. And then I wanted to get your thoughts. What Obi-Wan proved, even for my friends that weren't crazy about it, I loved it. Again, it's all good. It's all subjective. But one thing that everyone agreed on is Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen are Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. They own those roles, and they proved it once again in the series. And I hope we don't see the last of them. I'm assuming, I don't know if it's ever been official, so I was going to ask you this. Hayden Christensen's gonna be in Ahsoka, right? And possibly Ewan McGregor in flashback scenes.
Yeah, he's been, I think, accidentally listed in some of the cast lists for I think Variety listed the cast. So yeah, he'll be there.
As a Force ghost or a flashback or both?
I hope it's as a Force ghost, and the reason for that is the de-aging thing is still not perfected. So, but
it's not, and they didn't really put a lot of.
No, they sure didn't.
Obi-Wan, that's only like they could have made that a little better, but I still just enjoyed that so much I didn't really care. But
I'm hoping it's a Force ghost, and my dream scene I don't think will happen now because of Book of Boba Fett, but I was hoping that Luke would tell Ahsoka that Anakin was saved, and that would just be so wonderful. The other scene that I had thought would be kind of cool would be if Ahsoka sacrificed herself and she's welcomed to the Force through Anakin waiting for her, which I thought would be wild as well. But
I like it.
Yeah, so he'll be there. He'll definitely be there. It'd be great to see a flashback of the three of them, Clone Wars
Mhm.
era. Oh my god, that'd be so great.
Yeah, and
Well, and now have you heard? I think I heard a rumor that there's a younger Ahsoka actress that was. So I
so
don't know, man. And that
yeah.
just jumped back in my head because I remember hearing that several months ago, and I don't, from some nefarious source, I'm sure. But
I would think that if they flash back and use Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, they probably would use her for just making that consistent. But
yeah,
who knows? But maybe the flashback sequences with her are when she was much younger than that, and
yeah.
so I mean everything's on the table. I'm stoked. But do you think we'll see Ewan McGregor again?
I mean, Ewan has been talking so much about loving having come back. I think, that's when you're offered a gift of Ewan McGregor saying, "I'd be happy to do Star Wars again," you figure out how to make it happen. So yeah, I think we'll see him again. I think it may be a second season of Obi-Wan. I think it might be more focused uh on Tatooine, but who knows? I definitely think we'll see him back. I think we'll see Hayden in Ahsoka, but the nice thing, the good thing for Ewan is that Obi-Wan just keeps getting older, so he's in a good spot. He can just keep getting older.
Yeah.
Anakin, it's going to be rough unless he's Vader suit, but
Well, he's aging well. So
yes, he is. Yeah, it's the
Hayden
Canadian
Christensen,
blood, I think.
yeah, it's that
Yeah.
Canadian blood. What kind of cereal are you eating, Mr. Christensen? All right, buddy. Well, let's wrap this up. But I had a I had a little exercise I want to throw at you real quick.
Sure.
I'm just curious of your thoughts, and I'm going to just stick with live action. I was just going to do the films, but I think I'm going to
Mhm.
do Disney Plus as well. I'm going to list off. I'm just going to fire rapid and
Yep.
give me on a scale to 1 to 5, or let's make it 1 to 10. 10, you love it. One, you hate it.
Okay.
Obviously, we don't hate anything Star Wars. You ready? I'm going to
Sure.
go in order of these films releases. This is how my brain thinks. All right, Star Wars: A New Hope,
A New Hope, 9,
9. Empire Strikes Back.
11,
Ooh, I love that. Return of the Jedi.
8.
8. Are you gonna go see it? It's
Oh yeah, hell yeah,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. So 8. So the Phantom Menace.
Do you want when I first saw it or how I feel now?
I know, right? Because mine was like 2, and now it's like 6.
Yeah, I'd probably put it about 7, 6 and a
There you
half.
go. Perfect.
Yeah,
Attack of the Clones.
6,
6. Revenge of the Sith.
8,
8. The Force Awakens.
8.
8. Rogue One.
Oh, okay. I was expecting Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Rogue One again.
Dude.
That's one that's changed. I'm gonna put that at 8.
I'm doing releases. Yeah. The
Yeah.
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi is 9.
Solo.
6.
6.
Yeah.
I'm nervous to ask this next one. Can we just skip Rise of Skywalker? Rise of Skywalker.
Sure. Well, I mean, I still love it because of Star Wars, so none of them are 1, so I'll put that at like a 3 because
Okay,
there are some good things in it that are really
perfect.
good. Yeah.
I put it at probably a 7, 7.5. So that's funny. It's
Awesome.
funny how we see things differently.
Yeah.
All right. So the Mandalorian so far.
Mandalorian so far, 8.
8. Book of Boba Fett.
6.5.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Obi-Wan Kenobi series, I would say a 7.
7. Okay. And what is your? I'm not forgetting anything, right? I got
Andor.
Oh, Andor. Oh my gosh, Andor. Where's
Andor, I'd put it about an 8. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's your favorite non-live action Star Wars content?
Favorite non-live Rebels.
Rebels.
Rebels,
Yeah, I
yeah.
kind of figured you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Okay, one last Star Wars question. Which
Sure.
film is and it's because it may not necessarily tie into your numbers. You know how this works.
Sure. Yeah.
What is the most rewatchable Star Wars movie for you?
Most rewatchable. It's funny. Lately, it's been The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And that's so strange for me to say. I mean, without dragging us out another 20 minutes, I had written a fan fiction novelization of The Phantom Menace that took into account current canon. It's a real nerdy project. I'll talk to you about it some other time. It's available on my website. It's crazy. So I really got into The Phantom Menace for a while because I was trying to, in my head, improve upon it. But I do find it really rewatchable. I think the action scenes in it are you could just jump in, you can watch it from the beginning to the end. My favorite, I'll augment your question and say my favorite scene to rewatch of all Star Wars is the Carbonite Chamber in Empire Strikes Back. I could watch that 50 times in a row all day long. And so Oh, there you go. There's the mug. Perfect.
I love that Harrison Ford improv that line when it just
Yeah.
wasn't working. He's like, "Hold on, I got this,"
Yeah.
and he did it. What's the director's name?
Irvin Kershner.
Irvin Kushner. Thank you.
Yep.
I always get him and Richard.
Oh,
Who
Richard
directed
Marquand?
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, Marquand, right?
Yeah, think
Yeah,
that's right. Anyway,
I
I
think
get them.
so, maybe.
I get those guys confused
Yeah.
sometimes, but I like how they could not get it right, and then
Yeah.
he just said, "Let me just do this," and he says it, and they're like, "That's it. That's Han Solo." It's so. It's like, dude, that's so good.
Yeah. When
So
somebody knows their character that well, that's what makes him great. That's what makes
he's like, I
Harrison great.
love him so much now. I want to kill him.
Right.
Quick question for you, and I'm gonna let you run. Did you like the scene with him and Adam Driver in Rise of Skywalker? Did that scene
I
work
like
for
the
you?
scene. Well, clearly the fact that I'm not answering it quickly tells you I didn't love it. I would have preferred it to be Leia or Anakin. Um, but as a father, I loved it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're both proud dads. What's your favorite father movie? Or
Favorite
parent?
movie to Star Wars movie?
Well, it could be any movie. Like mine's Big Fish by Tim Burton.
Movie about fatherhood.
Yeah. Or Parenthood, even.
Man. I'm not even sure. I would
Maybe
have to actually think.
maybe it's just Star Wars.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it is a patriarchal film series based on family. So, and I don't mean patriarchal in a bad way. I mean, it's just the first 6 movies were about a dad situation. So,
It's pretty crazy when you think about it. When you can boil it down to that. I couldn't have imagined saying that, and I was young. I was old enough to have at least the somewhat of the depth to understand it. But going back and really thinking about this first 6 films, it's truly just a father-son story at the end of the day. It's
yeah.
pretty crazy.
Well, and all 3 trilogies kind of break up. It's interesting the concept of the first trilogy is sort of the family that you find out you're a part of. The prequel trilogy is sort of about, losing your family and the importance of family. And the third one is about found family. And it's 3 very legitimate ways to look at your real life, in one way or another. You get your friends, you get your family, friends at work, friends from work, and you have all of it. So it's different forms of family, and I think that's why Star Wars continues to work. Doesn't matter if there's TIE fighters and lightsabers. It's a family story. So
That's so beautifully said. We're going to end the show right there. That's awesome, buddy. That's a really great breakdown. Thank you so much. All right, man, give us a plug. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at ATGcast, trying to avoid trouble, but sometimes not trying hard enough. You can find all of our podcasts and shows on the sswnetwork.com or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/at the SSW Network. It's the best place to keep up with all our stuff.
That's so awesome. Will you please come back and have another conversation with us?
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
I would love it. It was such an honor. All right, Rick Shue, on behalf of Brian Chatlin, Courtney Cheek, and myself, we are the Friends from Work. We really appreciate it. This show will be up on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you download great podcasts. Until next time, may the force be with you.